right, there we go. Got my man in here. As I said earlier, man, this is a talented brother who's been in the game for a long time. I actually didn't know this. And I don't know how I didn't know this, but I'm glad I know it now. I didn't know. I knew you did editing for a lot of the original Milestone Comics runs.
Yes.
But I was going through and I was like, hold. I didn't know you had written any of them. So any of the original. So I was going through some of y'all probably can't see it now, but earlier I had the I think there's the 3 compendiums that have been released thus far. And I was kind of going through those.
Got mine right there.
Look, my man.
Listen, what?
Look. Yeah, baby.
Listen.
Look, I don't play.
Right.
I don't play. Look, I keep telling folks, I don't play when it comes to Milestone. I've read it all. I've even read the books people don't even know existed. For Milestone. I always tell people, look, man, I don't know anyone's checking for Cobalt, but I know who Cobalt is, okay?
There it is. That's right. That's what we're talking about.
I know who Death Wish is, okay? I did my homework.
Yes.
But no, you've done a ton of things. You've worked on a ton of things over the years. Right now, you're currently working on Shadow Cabinet. You also have books that have not been released yet that are on the way that we're probably gonna. I'm gonna try and squeeze some information out of you on here a little bit later in the interview. I don't want to give anything away just yet because I want you guys to stick around, see what we're talking about. But yeah, I was okay. Let's go ahead and just put this out. I was actually really excited when Shadow Cabinet was coming back because that's a book that I think when the initial Milestone Returns launch kicked off, I think I got an opportunity to kind of be in a bit of a group interview with Reggie and Dennis, and
nice.
I was that was actually one of the things I asked because I'm gonna throw a little bit of shade here. A lot of the folks that was in that group interview, I could tell had never read the original Milestone run. I'm just going to put that out there. But because when I asked about Shadow Cabinet, everybody's like, "Ooh, what's that?" What is this Shadow Cabinet he's talking about? Is he talking about real world politics? No, it was the Shadow Cabinet. You'll need to get put on game. But I remember Dennis kind of gave me this look, and I was like, oh, "Okay, you answered the question, but you didn't answer the question." I see. It's I see you, but you told me without telling me. But I was really excited when I saw it was coming back. I was more excited when I saw that you were on it, and you have skin in the game on like I said, on old school Milestone, and you've got skin in the game now, new school Milestone. And I was curious to know, when you how did all this come together for you with working on Milestone Universe Shadow Cabinet?
It's a great question because due to the fact that I am OG Milestone alumni and I have, still friendships with the founders now, and Reggie is one of my mentors and friends, I think there was this natural assumption that I was already deep in the machine, right? And it's
I would have assumed.
It's I'm not on staff at DC. I'm not on staff at Milestone. I don't have a benefits package.
You didn't fill out a W-2?
Exactly. I have relationships, I have friendships, but it's this is not an automatic thing. So, and one of the things that you just have to learn in life is whoever you are, right? You can't be sitting back and be like, well, they gonna come to me one day because I'm who I am, right?
Right.
It doesn't work that way, right? You want something out of life, you got to go get it, right? So, I was really fascinated with how the relaunch was coming out. Some of my favorite creators and friends in the industry were involved. It's come on, when I learned Brandon Thomas, who is a good friend, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the best writers in comics, was doing hardware, it was totally that whole meme, like, take my money.
Yeah.
Just take all of it. Let me get a loan.
Let's put a little bit of respect on his name.
Listen, you got to, right? And so when you were talking about him and, Vita Ayala and, Nick Draper Ivy and Jeff Thorne, it's like, and of course, like, Reggie taking it upon himself to do Icon and Rocket, all these things. It was like, wow, okay, this is really real, and it's great for Milestone to be coming back. And as I was reading the books, I was just really thinking about, okay, what is next? What do I see as the natural evolution of this? And so, I really thought about, very similar to how the original Milestone was, like if you go real deep into the original Milestone, there's a panel or two in the second issue of Static in which Virgil looks up into the sky and he sees like these flying beings just like flying over the night of the Big Bang. And that's actually the first appearance of the Shadow Cabinet in the OG books, right? So from my perspective, and clearly I think Reggie and Dennis were thinking this way from a 10,000-foot view, that the Shadow Cabinet is there. We just haven't seen them yet. We haven't had that conversation yet with the audience, right? So that was a book and a group that I had an affinity for. And when you think about it in the history of comics, because listen, Milestone did all the stuff before everybody, right? Just all the stuff. And one of them was the cynical action superhero group, right? So before the Authority, there was the Shadow Cabinet. Before the Ultimates, there was the Shadow Cabinet, right? And so that one was the one that always kind of hit a particular chord with me, in part because I'm a cynical optimist, right? Like I'm not around here wearing rose-colored glasses like the world is the world. Right. And so, listen. And so I reached out. I said, hey, I have some thoughts about this. Would you like to have that conversation? And they were like, yeah. And so then began like the long process, because here's another thing. I think that most people believe that the stories that get to print are the first version. And that's not the case with almost any creative endeavor, right?
You're usually
not the first version.
You might be lucky if you're seeing like the 8th or 9th iteration of a thing.
That's a fact. That's a fact. There's this thing in Hollywood where like every draft of a screenplay, the pages are a different color. And there's this big joke about you'll be lucky if you have 10 white pages left by the version that gets shot by a director, right? Because there was the pink wave, the blue wave, the orange wave, the green wave, right? And so, you know what I mean? It's crazy. So the thing is, this version took time to come to. And where it really culminated was when, Reggie Hudlin, Dennis Cowan, Reggie Hudlin's assistants, because he's Reggie Hudlin, he rolls like that. And then Marquise Draper, who's a Milestone editor at DC, Chris Conroy, who's an executive editor at DC Comics, and one of the things under his purview is Milestone, and myself, we all had this Zoom call for like an hour where we would just really it was really brainstorming in terms of, well, what does this have to be? And where we landed was Avengers Endgame. Okay. And to be clear about what's meant by that analogy, Avengers Endgame was the culmination of, like this 10 to 11 year storyline, which was a particular set of phases of the MCU, and then certain doors closed and other ones opened, right? And the new ones that opened gave us WandaVision, gave us Loki, gave us Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So it was like, that's what this has to be. It has to be the culmination of everything starting from Milestone Returns 0 to now. And I was like, okay, cool. I understand the assignment now, right? And I went away And then 2 weeks later, I came back with a 21-page pitch. The whole thing, every scene, from the first scene to the last, 10,000-foot view, because I had to see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I had to see it from God's perspective. Yeah. And, you know, thankfully, I only got a few notes. And I was like, okay, this is the thing that we're going to do. And it had to be really ambitious for a number of reasons. Number one, because the Milestone fans have been waiting for this, right? And, you know, if you want to take a line from, you know, the end of, you know, Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, where Batman says sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded, right? There are a lot of times in comics and entertainment when we believe in something and our faith is not rewarded and we're let down. And so the Milestone fans needed to have their faith rewarded, and it couldn't be just another story. It had to be the story, right? It had to be our kingdom come, right?
Oh, yeah,
in its
like
level of right? In its level of gravitas, right? That's what it had to be. And so, you know, it's like, okay, listen, we're going to swing for the fences, right? And either this is going to work or our arms are going to rip off our bodies, and we did the valiant attempt at it, right? But, you know, what's really been great, listen, so first off, you know, we're talking about comics. So the first thing that you always see is the art, right? So sure, it starts with me in a script, but come on, you got Darryl Banks, you got Adagoon Ilhan, you got Chris Sotomayor, you got these people bringing it. You got Ann World Design. This is the lettering studio that letters the Batman books, you know, just to keep it clear for you about status. You got Dennis Cowan, Nicholas. Listen, Dennis Cowan doing the 8 covers, Nick Draper Ivy doing the variant covers. Then for first issue, we got Mr. Batman White Knight, Sean Gordon Murphy dropping a cover on us, right? So it's like, listen, we're bringing flames.
Oh yeah,
and that's just it, right? We're bringing flames, and so it's just been this amazing experience where each issue is better than the last because we're building to a major crescendo. Darryl Banks has been sending in pages this week on Shadow Cabinet 4, and man, listen, you gotta stick around for the whole ride for this, because you know that first scene in issue 1, you know, our James Bond cold open with Angela Alva, that lets you know this is for real.
Yeah.
This is for real, and stakes are high, right? Like, sit your ass down, fasten your seatbelt, and let's go. You know,
I can definitely tell you. So my personal experience, and actually, real quick, I want to double back something you said earlier, because I felt a great deal of disrespect when I went to Memphis Comics Expo this year. My man Daryl was out there, and I was telling folks, like, I was actually, as I was walking around the con, I was like, y'all are disrespectful, because I said this man's line needs to be around the room. I was like, I was like, this man's line needs to be back to the to where you walk in and get your wristband, because I was like, and I love Daryl because I got to sit down and chit chat with him over some dinner, and man, he is just the coolest dude. He's the coolest, most laid back cat, and is so talented, and is so humble, about it. And I'm literally sitting like about 2 seats down from this guy, and I'm just like, I'm sitting next to the man that did this, that did the Green Lantern with the rings. I was like, y'all need to be putting some respect on this man's name. So when I saw he was on, I saw Adagoon was on, I knew it was gonna be good.
Come on. I mean, Darryl Banks, co-creator of the Kyle Rayner Green Lantern, co-creator of Parallax, right? You're talking about an Adagoon Ilhan, really one of the best artists to come out of the Milestone Initiative. He's
Mhm.
been doing work on Poison Ivy. It was his Poison Ivy work that I
Yeah.
was like, okay, and before, Marquise Draper, who's the editor, he's got a wicked sense of humor sometimes, because before he told me that I had to choose between them, and I was like, wait, what? What are you doing to me here? And then he was like, okay, let's just put them both in the same book. And I'm like, okay.
Like he's got you like Nino Brown with the pistol on G Money's forehead.
Listen,
You're just like, he's like,
listen. What?
What are y'all doing?
You're gonna make me choose between amazing and amazing?
Right.
Like, that's cruel. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, we got them both. I'm like, okay, cool. Then what we have to do is, listen, you have both those artists, but you have to figure out how to balance it so that the parts of the story they do make sense. Right. So Daryl was the one that like brought us into everything with Angela Alva and Rocket and Curtis Metcalf and, Angela and Tiffany. But then when we start getting to the Shadow Cabinet, right, then it's like, it's Atagoon time.
It's all
right. And as we would go back and forth, like when you go back to Curtis in his lab, that's Daryl, but then it's Atagoon with Shadow Spire. And so, hey, like, to me, this is fun. I can tell you one of the things about, being in comics as a writer is when you open your inbox and there are new pages. You're just like, hey, I'm busy right now. I'm busy right now. I'm looking at this.
I have recently discovered that joy, and it is it's not something that it's not something you forget.
You do not. If you're having a bad day, you're having a good day now. If you're having a good day, now it's a great day, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's really, these people are so skilled. Daryl's storytelling is so amazing. He knows how to lead your eye through the page, not just one page, but he knows how to do it when you open the book
all the
from
way
the
up.
page on the left to the page on the right. And I didn't even understand it until I looked at a PDF in a double page spread. I was like, damn, right? I'm like, this dude is that level. And to your point about why there's not a line around his table, number one, the industry is not the best at educating people about who people are. Right. And look, if we're going to keep it 100, it's certainly not the best about educating people about who other people are. Right? And so in a situation like that, listen, in a situation like that, I will put that on myself. Like, if I have to be the one to tell people who Mark D. Bright was after he passes, if I have to give you the history lesson, then I will do that. Right. And so anytime, I'm talking about this book, let you know who these people are. Right. Like, Daryl Banks has made history. I've known him for all of my career. I've been in the business for 31 years, right? That man has made history. He is history. So getting to work with him is an amazing joy. And again, you can see the work that we're all putting into this.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I just real quick, just to, because I just always want people to know stuff. If y'all have heard Daryl Banks' name, you just don't know who that. I just want to pull up a little. I'm gonna pull up a little cover. It's probably the cover I think he is most known for. Like, everybody, when I say Daryl Banks, it's one of the first things that pops in my head. But I just want to.
Yep.
I just want to pull that up. If y'all have ever seen this cover, or if you've ever looked at this image and you've just been like, man, that looks cold. Like, that is new money right there. That's who we're talking about, y'all. So
yep. And just to be clear, when you look at that was done in the 90s.
Yes.
And us now talking in the present, people look at that and that definitely evokes MCU Thanos, does it not?
Oh, yeah, no, you don't see that image and not think like, Okay, I see what they did here.
Exactly.
I see what y'all were going for. Like y'all thought y'all were slick,
Exactly.
but I
Yeah.
see you. I see you.
Exactly. Because even though, you know, the great George Perez, God rest his soul,
Yeah.
did Thanos in Infinity Gauntlet, there's something about that shot of Green Lantern with the rings.
Oh yeah.
Before he becomes Parallax. There's a menace there. And that menace I did not see in Infinity Gauntlet, the comic, but I damn well saw it anytime Thanos held his gauntlet in the films. So, you know, like you said, that's how influential this man is. His influence goes across company borders.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Well, and he's that good. He's that good with it.
100%.
For one, I think that, yeah, and I know some people, you know, are going to have their preferences one way or the other. But one of the things I liked about your reintroduction of Shadow Cabinet is really just like you had what I think was an embarrassment of riches of characters that you could pull from. Like you could pull from different iterations, or different roster makeups. You could have, you know, done just about anything. But what I really liked is that, and this is something I think a lot of people don't remember about Shadow Cabinet, is the original. I remember the Zero issue, which is something that is ingrained into my head because I remember that issue and it had everybody. Like it was
That's right.
it was that book. It was and just kind of send it home. Yeah, this is the cover for the Zero issue, and everybody was involved. It was there was all the characters that ultimately came together to become the Shadow Cabinet, but it was a lot of the main players that were involved at first, and then like it shifted to being different characters overall, but those other characters still like popped in, showed their face, kind of looked in from like every now and then. Yeah. And I was really excited because I was like, man, that means we're gonna be getting the old squad back. And I saw that you had you had also kind of, technically Anansi has been already introduced in the there was a Static one shot that came out, I think, oh man, it's probably like a year and a half ago. Maybe it might have been more than that. I might be misremembering. But I was like, okay, cool. I was like, Anansi's involved. Because like, as I think I said in my video, I'm not as familiar with the character. So I thought it was really cool to have an opportunity to get to know a character that I otherwise have not a whole lot of experience with. So I was curious, man, like how did you pick? Like was, because I know it was already difficult for you to pick between artists. So like what was, because there's like a dozen Shadow Cabinet characters. It's like
it's so crazy. It's so crazy. So okay, so there's two or three things. Number one is that this story, because it's the culmination, that means it has to cover all the major characters. Right. It's got to cover Icon and Rocket, the Blood Syndicate, Static, and then extend out to supporting cast. And so the Shadow Cabinet team that we know, well, they were in a Mission Impossible kind of comic, right? This is a different type of a story. And so all those Shadow Cabinet members and all the main Milestone cast, there wasn't enough oxygen in the room for all of them, right? Because this is a 120-page story over 4 30-page issues. So number one, for that reason, it was like, okay, we've got to pare down to what a real nucleic team looks like. And then, it was the editor, Marquise Draper, he was the one that said, hey, we should throw Anansi in there. And at first it threw me. I was like, wow, that's unusual. But then I was like, no, that's a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great opportunity to have him in there because number one, he is a beloved character from the people who know the Static Shock cartoon. Right. Number two, it was an opportunity for me to make him this really likable character who's the only person in the Shadow Cabinet with a sense of humor.
Yeah, because everybody else is serious as a heart attack.
Listen, like Iron Butterfly is frigid cold.
Yes.
She's frigid cold. And you know why, if you read her introduction in Blood Syndicate. And Dharma's Dharma, right? Dharma, you know, he's the guy that is seeing the past and the multiple futures. And so to have that kind of responsibility, which is actually not a gift, it's a curse.
Correct.
Your emotional capacity has to go way down because you're going to have to make decisions in which one person dies, 10 people die, or 100 die so that 10,000 live. And emotional attachment is not going to work with that responsibility. So Anansi was the opportunity to say, okay, let's inject some fun into the cabinet and have him alongside like the stoic person and the enforcer. And so he really got to shine. And I had a lot of fun with him, and he's the trickster. So I had fun him introducing himself through deception among all these billionaires. Everyone's like, oh, I'll bid 12 billion for Brainiac's head. And he's like, $5 American, and that's my final offer. Right? And he's just immediately introducing himself as a smart ass, right? And then he's kind of like saying, well, listen, I'm going to be telling all the kids back home about this, so we got to make it good. It can't be boring, so let's mix it up.
Bring the energy.
Kicking some ass.
Well,
he starts kicking some ass, so he can make it a good story for the kids.
Well, and I like that because, like you said, Nancy, you kind of have to have that levity there. And under normal circumstances, it's usually, because we can't dismiss Rocket's inclusion. She's usually the more lighthearted character between Icon and Rocket, but like she's in a place right now where she's, I won't necessarily say between a rock and a hard place, but like she's dealt with a lot over the course of Icon and Rocket season 1, Icon versus Hardware. She's had her own trajectory that's kind of been happening, and she's lost what is a valued relationship with someone who you could easily call a mentor, a friend, a potential father figure, an Icon, and that relationship has just fallen apart. And now she's working with Hardware, who is a completely different type of hard ass. Like, and it's something I kind of alluded to in my video before. I was like, Hardware is probably closer to the line of thinking that Rocket has, but
100%.
But in a very different way. Like he's still more measured in what he's doing and is kind of looking at all the angles. And
well, he's got to, it's like he's an engineer,
right?
So think about that, right? He's a person who builds things from the first object up, right? So he thinks about things in terms of their architecture. So when he looks at the world and the world's problems, his perspective is closer to, in a way, obviously Hardware is still humane, but closer to Ozymandias from the Watchmen, in terms of, well, I can't look at it at the street level. I've got to look at it at the infrastructure level. So like that example, this thing that's happening where it's like, where they're going to rescue this financier who washes money for drug cartels. Why? Because getting that guy out of rotation jams up the financial supply for multiple global drug empires.
Right.
right? And that's where you apply pain. You apply pain at the pressure points, and he understands that, right? Because he's twice Rocket's age.
And
he's more cynical, and he's an engineer.
So
that's how he thinks of things, right? You know, Rocket, on the other hand, Rocket is a very vertical thinker. And it's very interesting because, you know, you talk about her position and things like, you know, she's the sidekick for Icon. And then after a while, she, you know, was a student undercover at this prep school in Switzerland. And then, you know, she decides she's going to go with the Love Corps. And, you know, what really occurred to me about her is everyone thinks they know what's better for her. And isn't that the most frustrating thing in the world for a 17-year-old?
Right.
It's like for everyone to be telling them, I know what's better for you. I know what's good for your future. Listen to what I should be saying, right? When from a very real perspective, she could say, well, Icon, I made you.
Correct.
I found you and kicked you in the ass and made you get engaged, right? I'm the one that gave you that idea. You know what I'm saying? And like the Love Corps, this group of mysterious, powerful women, they want me. Why do they want me? Because I am the person that will not stop fighting. Right? So for her, it's like, you know, Icon is off in space because of the xenophobia that came after the Brainiac invasion. And so from her perspective, the Icon experiment failed.
Yeah.
Because she was like, Icon's going to help me like save a broken world. And that didn't happen, right? So she feels this responsibility that she's got to do it. She feels a partial guilt, right? And for her, it's vertical. It's day by day. I will save the world day by day if that's what it takes for the rest of my life, however long that is, right? That's her position. So she and Metcalf want the same thing. And to your point, they have very different approaches. And to your point, Curtis is of a closer mindset to Raquel than Icon was, right? So they make for a very interesting partnership. You know what I mean? But you know, you mentioned the you know, having the good fortune of having so many characters, so many rich and amazing characters to deal with. But I felt that what was important was to have one character be the human entry point into this fantastic world, right? And Rocket just really seemed to be the perfect choice. Number one, she's the most grounded of all of them. And number two, she's my favorite Milestone hero, and she's one of my 10 favorite superheroes, period.
Oh, and I love me some Rocket.
Listen, Rocket is for real. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so getting the opportunity to write her telling this story as a letter to her mother was really amazing. And I think to show people who she really is, like 6 months have passed, she's out there fighting the fight, and she gets in close. She gets in close. And, you know, it's interesting how, again, you know, going back to Anansi, because he's a more jovial kind of guy, he's fighting and it's playful.
Right.
But for Rocket, it's you and I, if we were out there fighting for our lives, like it's dirty and it's mean. And it's like, hey, I don't got time for chit chat. Like I'm here to prevent you from killing me.
Right.
Right. Before I can beat you, I gotta not let you kill me. Then I can beat you. Right. And then I can go off and do the next thing. But that's how it is when it's for real and it's up close. And I wanted to show that with her.
Well, and I you know, that's something that I often used to tell people, still do tell people, you know, whenever the topic of classic Milestone comes up. And, you know, people always say, well, you know, because it's a thing I always run into is I always end up getting in some argument with someone about the depiction of Icon. And I would often tell people that while the book is called Icon, he's not really the star of his own comic. I was like, he's there. He's a co-star. Right. It's I would often tell people that Rocket is where a lot of the real story was. It was where a lot of the commentary was. I was like, there's a reason. I was like, Icon is the way he is because that gives Rocket something to point to and say, this is not the way it should be. This is how it should be. And I was like, I think a lot of people that were reading Milestone back in the day didn't get it. Like, they were like, oh, well, why does Icon act this way? And it's like, he acts that way. So, because I said the point of the story is Rocket is supposed to be there to hold Icon accountable. Yes, she's a sidekick, but just in the same way that the real secret function of Robin is to keep Batman in check, it's the same thing for Icon and Rocket. Rocket is there to keep Icon in check. I was like, I said, you can go back and read some of those older issues. There's issues where Icon isn't even there sometimes. Like, it's a story about Rocket. I was like, and I said, that's what I loved about it because, when I was a kid, I was like, dude, this is cool to me. I was like, I like it, as a kid who grew up as the son of a single mother. Yep. I thought that I was like, dude, that made Rocket even more relatable. Even more relatable to me than she already was. Feeling seen, be damned. But I actually thought it was a really cool idea to put Rocket front and center here.
Thank you. I'm glad you like that. So far, we've gotten a lot of positive response about that, and I think part of that is because it gives us an opportunity to show us just how amazing this character is and how amazing young Black women are.
I mean,
like, come on.
I don't know who needs
all
to hear
on the
this.
Table.
Right.
All on the table.
I don't know who needs to hear this. In 2024, we're fast approaching 2025, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't know who needs to hear it, but I am here to remind people: if you didn't know back in the day, let me put y'all on game. I loved Rocket from the word go, but if you want to know, there's a single panel of a comic. And if I remember correctly, this was during the time that the GOAT himself, Dwayne McDuffie, was working on Justice League, and I got to see the single greatest scene I've ever seen in my life, and it was this right here. Yeah,
there we go.
Like I said, look, if you weren't a fan of Rocket here, I don't know what to tell you. You have played yourself at this point if you are not a fan of her after this moment. I'm sorry. I cannot help you. You are cooked. You cannot be saved.
It's so funny. I mean, that panel means so much to me on a number of levels. Because number one, it's funny. It's kind of like my worlds colliding, right? Because I started at Milestone and then I went to the Batman department, right? So here's like my two worlds like colliding in one panel.
I love it.
But it's kind of like, one of the books I worked on as an editor was one shot called Batman the Hill, which Christopher Priest wrote, that came out in 1999. And it was about Batman going to this neighborhood in Gotham called the Hill, which he never went to before because that's where the Black people live, right? And when he goes there, no one's afraid of him. Why? You never been here. So the legend of the Batman means nothing to us. You a silly man in a suit, get out of my house, right? And so he had to deal with his institutional prejudices and say, okay, I've got to learn about this part of my city and I have to play by its rules, right? So take Rocket, right? Rocket has never met Batman. And even
he doesn't matter.
If she met, even if she met Batman, it's like, not that she knows his origin, but if she learned it, she'd be like, so your parents got killed when you were 8? Like, that happened last night in my neighborhood. That almost happened to me, she could say. It's like, bro, it's like, you know what?
Right?
Like, life is hard. Life is hard. So she's not afraid of Batman.
No.
You know what I mean? And in the deep down of it, she's not afraid of anyone. And
which I like.
is, you know, she is a truly fearless human being. And I think that's part of what gives her her inner strength, right?
100%.
And we're gonna test the limits of her fear.
Now, and that's okay, and that's something I'm excited to hear you say, because I love to see characters pushed. Yeah, because it's the reason why I think some, you know, characters just really take off. Because you've seen them at their lowest. You've seen how they respond to adversity and you know, being at the brink, being brought to the absolute brink. And then it makes me curious too, because I know as you with the introduction, which, by the way, shout out to Nick Barucci in the building. Thank you.
Nick.
Out here, my man Nick out here in the building.
Hey, listen, this is the guy that genius idea hired Christopher Priest to basically write the Vampirella magnum opus.
Yes.
Like, I pity whomever has to follow Priest after that, because he's going to drop the mic and you're going to be able to hear it on the other side of the world.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
Because, listen. So that's what's going on. Yeah. So that's the quick aside to give Nick his flowers.
Oh yeah, no.
I mean?
We hand out the flowers here on the Blur Without Fear channel. I like people to get their stuff while they are here to get them.
Nice.
I love to see it. I love to see it. Christopher Priest is just a mad scientist of a man. And listen. I honestly, whoever's after, I'm in the words of the man on the other side of the phone and Taken, good luck.
Listen.
Good luck.
That's the only answer. That's the same thing that Ronald D. Moore, showrunner of Battlestar Galactica, said when someone told him there's going to be a Battlestar Galactica remake. He said, "Really?
Good luck."
Good luck.
Hey.
Because he knows that he and his team dropped mic after mic after mic. He knows that Battlestar Galactica was going to be the standard for the next 25 years. So it's like, you doing that? Have fun.
It's like, man, look,
I know what we did. You know what I mean?
You ain't replacing us.
Listen. So, and it's funny. I think every creator has to do that to a degree. I think, you know, if you get one issue, if you get 8 pages, I think you just got to go for it, man.
You got to show out.
I was here and I did the best story, not like I did the coolest looking pages, or I told the best version of the story.
I told the same thing. If you do that,
listen, if you do that, you are the best creator. The moment you fail to put the story first, that's when that's when you are unfortunately also diminishing yourself.
Correct.
Right? Story first, because
every time
people come together for a story, and then you get something that's greater than the sum of its parts. Sometimes you get sorcery. You just mentioned Bitterroot. Bitterroot is sorcery.
It is
in our times.
I don't know how that book exists or what mad lad signed off on it, but I'm glad that they did.
Yeah,
I'm glad that they did, because
absolutely, right?
Yeah,
and that's how it is. You make magic by accident. I mean, come on, taking it back to the front, when Milestone dropped in 1993, that was the biggest risk. 1993, it was the biggest risk, but comics so desperately needed this. People didn't even realize that they were malnourished.
Oh, no, they didn't.
They saw the books. Like after you read Hardware 1, there's a demarcation line.
Man.
There's before Hardware 1, Angry Black Man, which as we know is one of the best #1 superhero comics ever written in North American comics. That's just a fact. There's before Hardware 1 and there's after Hardware 1. There's before Static 4 and Static's conversation with Holocaust. And there's after Static 4, right? So that's when it's magic, when, you know, amazing people come together, but somehow you have an effect that's bigger. The Static Shock cartoon was magic.
Lightning in a bottle, quite literally, figuratively, and literally.
Yep, that's a fact. That's a fact.
Well,
you know,
I remember being, God, oh man, 93. So
I know this is a Wayback Machine.
Yeah, like I'm jumping. I'm literally in the DeLorean right now, and it is. I remember my mother bringing a newspaper page to me. I think at this time I'm probably about roughly 10 or 11 years old. And on that page, like I don't think it was the front page of the newspaper overall, but it was the front page of a section. And she handed it to me. She was like, "Have you seen this?" And I'm looking at it because at the time my mom was taking me to comic shops all the time.
Yeah.
And when she wasn't taking me, I was walking to them. And I saw on the front of this page, it was a picture. And there was Icon.
Yes.
There was Hardware. There was Static. And Rocket. And I don't remember the headline exactly, but it was basically to the tune of... It was basically... Just to paraphrase them, it was something along the lines of... you know, new superheroes on the rise, representing the Black community, something along those. I forget exactly how they worded it.
You know, it's interesting. That might have been a copy of the Village Voice.
I think it was because
it could have been the Village Voice because I remember when that came out, and that's when I knew Milestone had arrived because. Milestone, of course, appeared in the comic book industry periodicals, whether it was Comics Buyer's Guide or previews or advanced comics. But when you're in the Village Voice and what the Village Voice meant in the 90s, in the early mid-90s, let's be clear, Milestone launched the same year that the Wu-Tang Clan launched.
Yes.
Just so we understand historical importance in demarcation lines, right? So
I didn't think about that.
Listen. The chambers, right?
Yeah.
So
36 chambers.
That was like, dude, listen. So that was probably the Village Voice, and I remember seeing that and being like, because at that time I'm working for the company, and I'm like, wow. I'm just like, wow.
Well, it's wild to me because as a kid, I was looking at it and I was like, Black superheroes? I mean, like, I was used to seeing Black superheroes, but I was used to seeing them as like background characters. So the fact that I was looking at something that was like a Black Superman, a Black Iron Man, and I tell people this, and people used to argue with me about this, but I think no one's ever going to convince me that I'm wrong on this. But I was like, yeah, Static might have electricity powers, but please believe, Milestone was the first company outside of Marvel to crack the Spider-Man code. They were the first company. DC, I love DC, I love y'all to death, but y'all ain't figured that out yet. Y'all ain't quite figured it out yet. But Milestone had the finger on the pulse. Static, down to the origin story, to his life outside of costume, the problems he dealt with. He was basically a Black Peter Parker, but with way more seasoning and honestly, to my opinion, way higher stakes, more real world issues. I'll never forget the sex talk. From I forget the number. I don't remember the number precisely, but I remember It was Static and Daisy, and it was the whole like, hey, this is, hey, you got to be careful, da 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 da. I remember
Static
that was
25.
Okay, so there, yeah. See,
listen, Static 25 is the comic book that changed. It changed the world. I could draw you the line in how Static 25 changed the world. Maybe that's a talk for another day, because that would be a talk in and of itself. But that comic book literally changed the world. This is not hyperbole.
Yeah, no.
Let's have that conversation another time.
Yeah, we're definitely, because there's a couple of things I actually want to try and pick your brain about just real quick before I get you out of here. But we are definitely, I'm putting a pin in that for the next time.
Do it.
You have, and first, let's go ahead and just get this out of the way right now too. I see some of y'all saying, y'all are enjoying this conversation, but here's what I need y'all to do. If you have not done so already, I'm gonna need you to go to your friendly local comic book shop.
Yes.
Go talk to the person behind the counter and say, make mine Milestone. Say, I need Milestone Universe Shadow Cabinet. I need number 1. I need number 2. I just put the whole thing in my pull box because I keep seeing this all the time. I'm tired of seeing it because I keep telling people how to make things happen. I'm going to say it, and you got to do it. If you want more Milestone, you want more books like these that represent you and your ideals, that you want somebody with skin in the game telling stories that you can relate to, you have to go support them. So the best way to do that is to go have Shadow Cabinet put in your pull box and tell your hookup at the shop, any Milestone books, put them in the pull box. Yep. I don't care if it's new 100%. Static. I don't care if it's new. If Rocket gets a solo series, everybody in here needs to have that in their pull box. I don't want to hear people complaining, man, they canceled Static. They canceled Icon. You got to go buy them. You got to go buy them.
How did that happen? We're not getting more? How is that possible? Well, did you buy it? Nah, but how did that happen?
I was hoping everybody else would, so I didn't have to. No, that's not how this works.
And that, honestly, and this is something that I'm gonna die on the hill for this one. It's like you can't get a better world if you wait for someone to give you a better world. And there's the macro and the micro. The macro is the actual planet on which we live, but the micro is the comic book industry, right? And the micro in this case is DC Comics, right? DC Comics is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery as a company of shareholders. Listen, we live in a capitalist society. Yes. These are just the facts. And so what communicates long-term value are sales, right?
100%.
So, and to your point about, the pre-order and the pull list, and thank you for mentioning that, because not everyone knows about that. It's unfortunately, it's not enough to go in your comic book store and discover it. No. You have to advance order it so that they know demand, right? And you take that across all the stores in the United States, and you add the ones in the European Union. That information goes back to DC Comics, and that's a statement.
Preach.
Right? And that's what we have to do. And I don't ask anything of other people that I wouldn't do myself. That's what I did for Black Lightning. I preached the gospel of Black Lightning before the final order cutoff date at the comic book store. I put that on my pull list, all issues. When number 1 came out, I showed a picture that I had it. It's like, I am not just talking the talk here. I'm walking the walk and taking it back to the front. That's why the team and I brought the best that we could. Because look, let's keep it real. Comic books aren't cheap, right? Like, $4.99 is now the starting point in general, right? Then when you get into a variant cover, it's $5.99 or whatever. So
if it's a giant size issue, you're getting your head busted for about probably $9-10.
Seriously, Jonathan Hickman wrote is $10.
Right.
$10. Right? And it's like, whoa, what? So value must be there. Because the thing is, people will pay for quality.
Oh,
if it's
100%.
good, they will pay for it because quality speaks for itself. It's like a meal at a fine restaurant. It's that higher brand level of dress or suit or shoes, right? It's like, if it's 100%. Good, I don't need to look at the price. The price only comes up with mediocrity. Just to keep it clear. To keep it clear.
Talk to him.
The price only matters with mediocrity. But with quality, the price does not matter. And so that's what we're saying. We're saying that we are giving you the value to the very last cent, right?
100%.
Because we respect you. If we don't put our 100% effort into it and expect you to pay 100% of the cover price, then we don't respect you. Or we have been forced to do less than our best. But that was not the situation here. Like, everyone understood the assignment, and DC gave us the time to do the best. And we're all very proud of it. And it's really exciting that it's out now, that it has begun, so we can have these conversations, right? And issue 2 comes out next week.
Yes.
And that's going to be the return of Static. And I imagine there's going to be some opinions about that. It's gonna be interesting. There's going to be some opinions about what's Static's mindset 6 months after the Brainiac invasion, right? It's a bit of a turn, but what I will say to you all is it will make sense. Whether or not you're totally on board with it, right? It's the Killmonger thing. It's like, Killmonger was right. Now he went just one step too far.
Yeah, he went, but he put too much mustard on it. He put too much mustard.
Too much mustard.
Yes.
But too much. But he was correct.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so that's it. And so it'll be very interesting to see what people think, but we're taking the characters on a journey. And when they get to the end, it will have been meaningful. It will have been earned, and new doors will be opened, and we'll see what the future of Milestone could look like.
I dig it. So that being said, first off, shout out to Black Comic Lords also up in here. Y'all go show some love over there. 100%. I also just want to put this out here. You also have a couple of other things that are coming up.
Yes.
And one of which is the Spawn spinoff, Bloodletter. You're going to be working with friend of the channel, Tim Seeley.
We're having a lot of fun.
Which I'm gonna go sorry now. That's wild. I'm gonna look. I don't know who I need to contact, but I'm gonna need to I'm gonna need to have a little chit chat with both of y'all about that here before too long.
Okay.
I'm gonna need to have a little chit chat. We'll have to we'll talk about that after later. But yeah, right. I do want to say I think this is a really cool idea. With what's going to be going to Bloodletter. I think Bloodletter is going to be is it in January or February? I think it's in February.
So what's going to happen is it's going to launch in April.
Or in April.
So basically,
okay, all right,
this is what I tell everyone. I tell everyone, Shadow Cabinet is November to February, and in March, everyone can go take a bathroom break.
There you go.
and then in April, the new assignment begins, and Bloodletter is ongoing, right? It's ongoing until Todd McFarlane says stop, or until like Tim and I just fall at our desk dead. But we've got a big plan for that character. First of all, listen, as someone who remembers buying Spawn #1, right? Like the beginning of Image Comics, just like the beginning of Milestone Comics, like those 90s, man.
It was a time
to be alive.
You had to be there. You had to be there.
100%. You did. You had to experience it. And so to now be able to write a story in that universe with this character, right? And just to give a little bit about her, you know, her name is Tasha Thornwall. She's part Haitian, part South American. She was an ex-CIA agent. And if you know Spawn, you know that Spawn was a CIA agent, and he was mean. He was dirty tricks personified. Like, if you see his face,
it's over.
It's over for you. And so they mixed it up 10 years ago, and it did not end well for Tasha, right? And so she's been underground learning magic, and I mean dark magic and a bunch of stuff. And 10 years later, she finds out that Spawn is Al Simmons, and Al Simmons is alive. And she's like, okay, all the plans that I had for the rest of my life, they're now out the window. I only have one plan now, and that is to kill Spawn. That is the only mission.
I love
to kill Spawn, right? And so this is going to be a mean comic.
I believe it.
Like the Spawn universe is rated R.
Yeah.
So, and we're writing the issue now in which Bloodletter and Spawn mix it up. This is gonna be Red Band.
Ooh.
Just so we're clear.
Okay, so
like not for the faint of heart.
So y'all know, while you're at it, go add that to the pull boxes. Go ahead and do that too.
Add it right now. Yeah. Add the entire series right now, because Shadow Cabinet's the warm up.
Okay, yeah.
You know, yeah, it's the warm up, because that's just gonna spike things. And y'all know, like, Tim comes from horror. Revival is now being done as a sci-fi show. He just visited the set. Hack
That's my
Slash.
heart.
Listen, come on. So
also one of my favorite horror movies recently, Revealer.
Yes. Yeah. So listen, you put our diabolical minds together, and then the art by Christian Rosado and the colors by DC Alonso. Like, honestly, like, I'm gonna keep it real for you. Like, I want multiple printings. I want absolute Batman.
Yes.
Like, like you keep reading announcements. Yo, there's a second printing of Bloodletter #1. Hey, there's a third printing of Bloodletter #1. Like,
we're on fifth printing. Look, make that. Make it sell like X-Men #1. Have it in every. I want to see multiple editions. Editions.
I'm sure. Isn't Jim Lee tired of historically being the artist of the top selling comic? Doesn't he just want to pass that torch over to somebody? He can pass it over to us.
Jim Lee gets a notification. Oh yeah, we're on the 10,000th printing of X-Men #1. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Exactly.
That's how I want my man Joseph here. I want my man Joseph to be like, look.
Listen,
man, we're on printing 16 million. Look, 16 million. I don't even, I lost track at 5, man. Look, it just keeps happening. That's what we want. Okay.
There's nothing wrong with ambition.
No.
As long as you're always bringing your best. You know what I mean? Like, if we're always bringing our best, then as creators, we're honoring our part of the social contract. Which is 100%. That if you pay your money for it, it will be worth it, right? And 100%. That's what this is. This is a contract between us, right?
Well, like I said, man, yeah. These are bars. Like, there's not a bad bar in the bunch. Okay, these are bars.
Well, listen, it's Blerd without fear. I can't come here. I can't come here and be like the wallflower. I'm like, oh, okay. Let's go.
He's like, look, man. He's like, I got 60. I I got my bars. I got bars of the chorus for you. All right, and a hook. Let's go. But no, I just want to say, for one, yes, Shadow Cabinet. Please do it. Bloodletter. Please do it. Also, keep your eyes peeled because I have it on good authority that you have a Harriet Tubman Conductor on the Underground Railroad graphic novel coming up as well. So
yeah, that'll be like, that's a while. Everyone,
it's like later 2025.
Yeah, later 2026.
Oh,
is what we're
okay.
talking about right
now.
Yeah,
okay.
Because listen, this is over 200 pages. Marcus Kwame Anderson is the artist. He just wrapped up. I think it's called Big Jim and the White Boy with
David F. Walker. Yeah, homie David F.
Listen. So he's got to draw all of that. So that's going to take some time. But listen, when it comes, it's going to have the spine. And, the thing about that is, it's funny because y'all who read Shadow Cabinet 1, y'all saw a reference to Harriet Tubman in there. But that organically came from me reading the book that my graphic novel is an adaptation on by a author named Ann Petrie, who has since passed. But it's like, people don't know. They don't know that for like maybe half of Harriet Tubman's life, she didn't own a pair of shoes. They don't know that she started getting whipped when she was 6 years old. They don't know that for her, freedom or death wasn't just a saying. There was freedom or death, but she would never allow herself to be enslaved again. And so, I honestly feel blessed to have the opportunity to tell these stories. The same way that Milestone inspired me, and 31 years ago with its stories, like, I was Virgil Hawkins when I was a kid, and there was no Static comic out. I wish there was a Static coming out when I was a kid.
Man.
So the opportunity to pay it forward and the opportunity to tell her story to young people, especially, again, the same thing with Shadow Cabinet. I want young people to see themselves as heroes. I want them to know that we see them as the people that will never give up. No matter how much they've been disappointed, no matter what kind of a bad bag they've been passed, we see them as the heroes of our future.
Yeah, like I said, man, once again, bars. Look.
From the heart.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, y'all better come from the heart and go get these books in your pull boxes. And like I said, Shadow Cabinet, #2, next week. Go get it. And when you get it, say, put the rest of it in there. And like I said, come April, actually, matter of fact, do this before April. Go do it now, because the sooner you do it, the better the better it works out for all parties involved. Go say, hey, I need Bloodletter. I need it right now. Put the whole thing in. Right. And trust me, you will not be sorry, because Joseph is always out here cooking. Okay?
Listen, that's a fact. That's, you know what? It's a lot of work. People don't know where I get the time to sleep or whatnot. I'm like, it's a lot of work. But you know what? I enjoy the hell out of it. As my wife told me one day, she just straightened me out. I was having a really bad day, and she was like, "You have the coolest job in the world." I was like, okay, you know what? You're right. I'm going to clam up now.
Honestly, you know what? Shout out to the wives out there holding it down, because my wife has had to have the exact same conversation with me where I'm like, man, life sucks. She's like, you talk about comic books for a living. And I'm like, let me shut up. Let me sit down. Anyway, I'm having the greatest day ever. Let me get back on reading these books. So yeah, I totally get where you're coming from.
It's real. Man.
It is what it is. But I just want to thank you for taking the time to sit and chat with me. I know we went a little bit over, but I really appreciate you hanging with me.
Hey man, time has no meaning, and I really enjoy this. And thank you for what you are doing, because I saw you out there. It's funny, Crisscross, one of the Milestone OG heads who did Blood Syndicate season 1 and is now working on Weapon X-Men for Marvel. He sent me the link to the episode that you did, and I watched it, and I was like, wow. So when you talk about holding it down, you're holding it down. And so you have my thanks.
Well, all I can do is if it's putting the word out, that's what I want to. If that's the most I can ever do, I'm gonna do it till I can't do it no more. And I really just appreciate you just having these comics to talk about, to be able to tell people about these books that people have been begging for, asking for, like literally like crying to the sky, fist pumping at the sky. Because I can't tell you how long people have been like literally like, man, when's Milestone gonna drop some new heat? When's Milestone coming back? And I'm like, man, look, I don't know, but here we are. We back. Like, look, in the words of Stringer Bell, look, I want you to put the word out. We back up, okay? We back up.
Damn right.
We back up, all right? We back.
Damn right. That's right. That's right. That's right. It was wild. If you've seen it on YouTube, my career spotlight panel at San Diego Comic-Con, I had Dennis as a guest because I wanted to really thank him for being the first person to come up with the idea of Milestone. And that's where we first announced it. We first announced it at San Diego. And ever since then, I've just been preaching the gospel and talking about it because we saw all the people out there. Are they coming back? Or saying, oh, they're done. And we couldn't say anything. Oh. And so again, this book is to say, we always heard you and we always saw you. And this is one for the ages. So thank you for coming along on the ride with us.
Well, hey, y'all know what to do. I got links down in the description. All you got to do is click on those. It'll take you straight to some of Joseph's other works. And like I said, y'all know to go do the thing. I will see you all tomorrow for the Blerd Cave. Me and Carl will be back. We'll be talking our usual BS about a bunch of random things. Probably a big lizard coming to Marvel to beat up superheroes or something.
I did hear a little thing about that.
Yeah. We'll probably talk a little bit about that, and we'll probably talk about Marvel Rivals because everybody else is.
That's true.
But thank you all again, and thank you, Joseph, for your time. And we out of here, y'all. Go do the thing.
Thanks, man. Good seeing y'all. Bye.
All right.